Bonds are like IOUs. You give someone else your money and they promise to pay you back later. Meanwhile, you earn interest, money, every so often. There are many versions, so let's break them down and find the best bonds to invest in. The biggest risk in the bond world is default risk, which means what is the likelihood that someone can't pay you back? If you lend money to your best friend, there's a high likelihood that they will pay you back, unless you're friends with people who forget they borrowed money from you. I've had a few of those. However, when you buy bonds, you're dealing with organizations you don't know, so how can you know what the likelihood is? This is where credit rating agencies like Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch come into the picture. These agencies give credit ratings to different organizations to tell you how likely they are to pay you back. The higher the score, the more likely, but this also means you earn less. Which bonds you invest in will depend on your risk appetite. US Treasury bonds are the safest ones. You can use these as the foundation to build on top of. It's highly unlikely that the US government will go bankrupt tomorrow and say, sorry, but I can't pay you back. Possible, but unlikely. I mean, if it survives Donald Trump's presidency, I'm sure it'll be fine for the near future, right? You can buy treasury bonds from the treasurydirect.gov website. There are three types with a fixed interest rate: treasury bills, notes, and bonds. Bills are less than a year long, notes are 1 to 10 years long, and bonds are 10 to 30 years long. Unlike notes and bonds, there are no interest payments for bills. Instead, you earn your money by buying the bill for a cheaper price and getting the full amount back later. For example, if you buy a $1,000 bill, you will only pay $950 right now, and when the time is up, you will get $1,000 back. Additionally, there are two bonds with variable interest rates: Treasury Inflation Protected Securities, TIPS, and floating rate notes, FRN. The value of TIPS can go up with inflation or down with deflation, and your interest payment amounts can change. When the time is up, you will either get your full amount back or the increased amount from inflation. For example, if you buy $1,000 TIPS at 1.5% interest rate and there's no inflation, you will get a $15 interest payment. However, if there is a 2% inflation, the TIPS value is now $1,020 and your interest payment also goes up to $15.3. FRNs pay a fixed interest rate plus a variable interest rate that resets weekly, and that is based on the rate for the most recent 13-week treasury bills. For example, FRN has a fixed interest rate of 0.25% and a variable rate of 5.25%, so you will get a 5.5% interest payment. Lastly, there are two US saving bonds, EE bonds and I bonds. However, you can't sell these to someone else unlike most bonds. If you need to cash out, you can do so after a year, but there's a small catch. If you withdraw before 5 years, you lose the last 3 months of interest. EE bonds earn a fixed interest rate for 20 years and are guaranteed to double in value in 20 years, regardless of what happens. In contrast, I bonds earn a variable interest rate that can change every 6 months depending on inflation. If you're enjoying this video so far and finding it valuable, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button for more videos like this. You can also go for something more local like municipal bonds, which usually give tax-free interest payments. These pay cities, counties, states, daily operations, or big projects such as building schools or highways. They work similarly to treasury bonds. There are two common types: general obligation bonds and revenue bonds. General obligation bonds are backed by the full faith and credit of the borrower, which can tax residents to pay you back. Revenue bonds are backed by the money that a project makes, for example, highway tolls. To buy short or long-term municipal bonds, you can use a brokerage account. If you want to take on more risk for potentially more money, you can buy corporate bonds. These range from low risk, investment grade, to high risk, junk bonds. Companies need to borrow money when they want to expand, and so on. You can buy these from the company that's borrowing the money or through a brokerage account. However, investing in a single bond can be difficult and costly. Fortunately, bond funds make investing in bonds easier. A bond fund has a bunch of different bonds inside that could have different durations and risk/reward. They can come from different companies, governments, and so on. Bond funds spread out your risk and lower your costs to get into the game. However, you want to be careful of high management fees. I recommend going with a low-cost bond index fund. Here are some examples that you can invest in. Although bonds and bond funds are awesome for growing your money with little risk, there are other safe investment options. This next video will cover 11 different safe investments that will also safely grow your money.